What if Michael Gray had chosen Tommy Shelby over America? One word in a hotel room, and the man who was meant to bury the family becomes the only one who can save it. This is the story of the Shelby that history never wrote. Boston. The winter of 1933. Snow comes off the harbor in gray sheets, and behind a high window on the top floor of a hotel that smells of money and salt, Michael Gray is being asked to sign his family away. The papers are on the table. Clean American paper, thick as a hymn book. Gina stands at the glass with her back to him, her arms folded, watching the lights of a city that is not his. "It's done, Michael," she says. "All you have to do is put your name where they've marked it. After that, the Shelby Company belongs to men who know what to do with it. And you sit at the top. Not your uncle, you." Michael looks at the line where his name should go. He has carried these papers across an ocean. He has rehearsed this moment in his sleep. The men behind the door in the next room are patient men, the kind who do not raise their voices, because they have never had to. They have bought senators. They have bought judges. Tonight they are buying a company in Birmingham, and a Shelby to wear it like a coat. "He'll fight it," Michael says. "Let him fight." Gina turns. She is beautiful, and she is certain, and certainty is the most dangerous thing she owns. He's a sick man 4,000 miles away, and he doesn't even know it's happening. By the time Thomas Shelby understands what's been done, the deal will be older than the ink. This is how it ends, Michael. Quietly, the way real power always ends things. And Michael picks up the pen. He has every reason. He has counted them, one by one, in the dark. The reason called 1922, when they sent him away to a school where boys had fathers, and he had a name nobody could explain. The reason called the bomb under the car, the one that should have killed Tommy and killed his mother's faith in him instead. The reason called the money, the long, cold education of watching Tommy decide who lived and who lost everything, and never once asking the boy what he wanted. There is a debt here, and Michael has spent years learning to read a ledger. The numbers say, sign. The pen touches the paper, and then it stops. Because there is one number Michael cannot make balance. There is a woman who is not in the room because she has been dead 4 years, and her voice arrives anyway, the way the dead always arrive, uninvited and exact. Polly Gray. His mother, the woman who found him after a lifetime apart and looked at him once across a kitchen and knew him to the bone. And the memory takes him all the way back. 1928. A kitchen in Small Heath, the kettle going, Polly with a cigarette burning down to her knuckle, and that silver streak catching the lamp. He had come to her clever that night, full of a scheme, a way to move money past Tommy without Tommy knowing. And she had let him talk himself empty before she said a word. Then she'd set the cigarette in the saucer and looked at him the way only she ever looked at him, like she was reading a letter she'd waited her whole life to receive. "You can be a Shelby, or you can be a clever man, Michael," she'd said. "But the day you choose clever over family is the day you'll find out you were never either. I lost you once. They took you off me and gave you to people who taught you sums and manners and how to want things. And I have spent every day since getting you back an inch at a time." She'd touched his face, once, rough and quick, the only kind of tenderness this family knows. "So you be clever all you like, son. Just never be clever at us. Because we are all you've got that's real. The rest is paper. The rest is paper." In a hotel room in Boston, with the snow on the glass and the patient men behind the door, Michael Gray looks down at the thickest paper he has ever held, and he sets the pen down. Gina sees it. She has spent her whole life watching men's hands, and she sees the small, fatal stillness in his. "Don't," she says, and it is not a plea, it is a warning. "Don't you dare go soft on me now. These men do not lose deals, Michael. They do not have a word for it." "Then they'll learn one," Michael says. He stands. He buttons his coat. And then he does the thing that cannot be taken back. He opens the door to the next room himself, and he walks in among the patient men. There are 3 of them. The old one in the center does not look up from his cigar. There is a younger one by the window who is paid to watch hands, and a third by the door who is paid to close it. The old one says, "You've signed then. Good, we'll have a drink." "There's no signature," Michael says. "There's no deal." The company isn't for sale. It was never mine to sell. Now the old man looks up. He has a face like a closed bank. Sit down, son. I'll stand. You came to us, the old man says, gentle as a priest. 6 months ago. You came to us and you said your uncle was finished, the company was rotting, and a clever man could take it clean if he had the right friends. We are the right friends. We have spent money on you. We have spent something more expensive than money. We have spent belief. He taps the ash from his cigar with great care. Men who waste our belief, Mr. Gray, do not generally enjoy what comes after. I know what comes after, Michael says. I've watched it from the inside for 2 years. That's how I know exactly what you are. He buttons the last button of his coat. You don't build anything. You find a thing somebody bled to make, and you wait until they're tired, and you buy their own children to open the door. I was the door. I'm telling you the door's shut. He looks, for a moment, almost sorry. Go home. There's nothing for you in Birmingham. The old man smiles, finally, and it is the worst thing in the room. Birmingham? He says, as if tasting it. We'll see. That is the divergence. That is the hinge on which the whole world turns. In the life that was, Michael signs, and the betrayal runs its course, and the family is cut from the inside by the boy they raised. But here, in the life that might have been, Michael Gray walks out of a hotel in Boston with snow in his collar and his mother's voice in his ears. The ship home is 5 gray days, and the marriage does not survive them whole. On the second night, in a cabin that pitches with the sea, Gina says the thing she has been holding since the hotel. You didn't just turn down a deal, Michael. You turned down me. The whole reason I crossed an ocean. The man I married had a future I could see from a long way off. I don't know the man on this boat. The man on this boat is the one your money was trying to bury, Michael says. He is at the porthole watching the black water. I'd have hated myself by Christmas. And a man who hates himself is no use to a wife or anyone else. You'd have ended up married to my uncle's worst version, Gina. I've seen what that costs a woman. I won't make you pay it. She is quiet a long time. The sea knocks at the hull. And if your family won't have you, she says. You walked out on the men who own half of Boston for people who might still slam the door. What then? Then we find out what I'm worth without a throne under me, Michael says. I think it's the first honest question I've ever asked. And Gina, who married a future and got a man instead, lies awake the rest of the night, deciding whether that is a robbery or a gift. In Birmingham, in the long house where the coal fire never goes out, Tommy Shelby is dying by inches and pretending it is strategy. 1933 has not been kind. He has put his daughter in the ground that year, little Ruby, gone to a fever the doctors gave a Latin name and no cure. And a man can lose a child and keep walking. But he does not keep walking far. Lizzie finds him in the small hours in Ruby's room, sitting on the floor with his back against the empty bed, a bottle untouched beside him, which is somehow worse than if he'd drunk it. Come to bed, Tom, she says from the door. In a minute. You said that 2 hours ago? Then in another minute. He does not turn his head. I keep thinking if I sit here long enough I'll work out the angle. There's always an angle, Lizzie. A man does this. A man does that. You see the move 3 ahead, and you make it and the thing comes out the way you wanted. 43 years I've done it. His voice goes to nothing. And there's no angle on this. No move. She just stopped. And all my cleverness is worth exactly nothing in this room. Lizzie comes and sits beside him on the floor, in the cold, in her nightdress, because that is what love looks like when it has run out of words. You don't have to be clever in here, she says. You just have to be her dad. And you were. You were a good one, whatever else you've been. He lets his head rest against the bed frame. The company's slipping, he says, after a while. I can feel it going. 30 years I held it, and now it's running out between my fingers, and I haven't got the strength to grip. And the only one of us with a mind sharp enough to take it from me is on the other side of the ocean with a wife who wants me dead. He almost laughs. Pole's boy. If anyone steals it clean, it'll be Michael. So when Michael's telegram comes, 2 days later, Arthur reads it first, because Tommy's hands are not steady in the mornings anymore. Arthur reads it twice. Then he carries it into the study and puts it on the desk and says, Michael's coming home. And he says, "There's men coming with him we'll want to be ready for." Tommy looks at the paper for a long time. Ready for what? He doesn't say. He says trust him. And Tommy laughs, low and without joy, the laugh of a man who has not trusted anyone whole since France. "Trust him," he says. "The boy I sent away." The boy Pole thought hung the moon. He folds the telegram once, twice, into a hard little square. "Get the family in, all of them. If Michael's bringing weather, we'll be standing when it lands. They come in from across the city the way they always come, by old habit and old fear. Ada from London, sharp and tired of being the only one in the family who reads the newspapers properly. Finn, grown now into a young man, trying too hard to be his brothers. Lizzie, who is Tommy's wife and his witness. They gather in the room with the long table, and the fire spits, and the question hangs over all of them. Which Michael is coming home? The boy or the knife? Arthur is the one who says it plain. "I don't like it. He goes to America, the family's man. 2 years he's there, and now he sails back with a telegram full of riddles and a boat full of strangers. I've seen that play, Tommy. I've helped write it." He puts a thick finger on the table. "When he walks through that door, I want a man behind him. Just in case the boy we get isn't the boy we sent. He's Polly's son," Ada says. "So was the bomb under the car somebody's son?" Arthur says. "Don't mean it loves you." Tommy lets them argue. He has learned that a family needs to say its fear out loud before it can do anything brave. "We do nothing," he says at last, "until he's said his piece. A man who meant to put a knife in you doesn't sail home to do it at the front door with his wife watching. Michael wants something. We let him ask. Then we decide what he is. He stands, slow, a hand on the desk to do it. But Arthur, yes, put a man behind him." Michael answers the question himself, 6 days later, when he walks through the door with the cold still on him and Gina 3 steps behind, her face a closed account. He sees the man Arthur posted by the wall. He sees the family arranged around the long table like a court. He does not wait for the embrace that does not come. He puts his hands flat on the wood, in front of all of them, and he tells them everything. The Americans. The takeover. The papers in Boston, with his name's empty place on them. He holds nothing back, because his mother taught him that the only thing worse than a betrayal is a betrayal you hide. "I was meant to be the end of you," Michael says. "That was the job. Come home, smile, sign, hand the company to men who'd strip it for parts and leave the name on the door so nobody asked questions. I was the inside man." He looks at Tommy. "And I'm telling you to your face, with your man stood behind me ready to do what your men do. Because if I'm going to stand with this family, it's going to be with clean hands or not at all." Arthur is up before the sentence is finished, his chair gone over backward, and there is a pistol in his fist, and it is level with Michael's eye. "You came in here," Arthur says, very quiet, which is when Arthur is most dangerous. "And you told us you were sent to kill us. And you thought that was the clever thing to say. You." Michael does not flinch. That is the thing that saves him. He does not flinch. "I thought it was the true thing to say," he says. "You can shoot me for the truth if you want, Arthur, but you'll be shooting the only man in England who knows exactly how these people move, and you'll need him by autumn." "Arthur." Tommy's voice is not loud. It does not need to be. "Put it down. Tommy, put it down. He came home to tell us. A knife doesn't announce itself." Tommy's eyes have not left Michael's face. "Why," he says to Michael, "just that. You had it. You had the throne, and a wife who wanted it for you, and an ocean between you and anyone who could stop you. Why come back and put the knife in your own hand?" Michael is quiet a moment. Then he says the only true thing he has left, "Because she'd have hated me for it. And I've spent 4 years finding out she was the only one whose hate I couldn't live with. Nobody has to ask who she is. Polly is in the room now, the way she is always in the room, in the silver-streaked memory of a woman who held this family together with both fists and a cigarette." Tommy stands. He crosses to Michael, and for a long moment the whole family holds its breath, because with Tommy Shelby you never know whether the hand coming up means an embrace or an ending. He grips Michael's shoulder. "Then you came home," Tommy says, to the right family. And the room breathes again. Even Arthur, slowly, sets the pistol on the table, though he does not take his hand off it for the rest of the night. But choosing blood is not the end of the story. It is the start of the bill. Because the patient men in Boston do not have a word for losing, and now they have a reason to learn one. Within the month, word reaches Birmingham. The American interests have not gone home. They have simply changed their plan. If they cannot buy the Shelby Company, they will break it, and they will make an example of the boy who embarrassed them. They send a man across the water. Not a soldier, a negotiator with a soldier's history. A quiet Irish-American named Brennan who arrives in Birmingham with a tailor's smile and a list of everyone the Shelbys love. The first thing Brennan does is the cruelest and the cleverest. He goes to Gina. He finds her in a hotel tea room, and he does not threaten her. He pours her tea. "You're a long way from anything that's yours, Mrs. Gray," he says. "Your husband made a choice. He didn't make it for you. The men I work for, they remember who was loyal. There's still a chair at the top of the table. It's just got a different name on it now." He slides a card across the linen. "When you get tired of being a stranger in your own marriage, you call that number. Ask." And here is the thing the old life never let us see. Gina does not take the card. Not out of love, though there is still some of that, buried under all the ambition like a coin in a drowned man's pocket. She does not take it because she is not a fool, and she has watched what these men do to people who are useful to them and then are not. "Tell your friends," she says, sliding the card back, "that I married a Shelby, and whatever else that family is, they don't sell their own. Not anymore." It is the first time in her life Gina has chosen the long odds over the safe ones, and she will spend the rest of the story finding out it was also the first time she chose right. When she tells Michael, that night, something between them mends that neither expected. "They offered me your chair," she says. "I told them no." Michael says nothing for a while. Then he says, "Polly would have liked you, after she'd hated you for about a year." And Gina, who has never once cried where a Shelby could see it, laughs instead, which in this family is the same thing. Then Brennan comes to Tommy. He comes to the office above the works, and he sits across the desk from a man he has been told is finished, and he makes the mistake every American makes with Tommy Shelby. He believes the report. "You look tired, Mr. Shelby," Brennan says. "A man your age, your health, a daughter in the ground. You've had your war, 2 of them. Nobody'd blame you for sitting down now." He sets a number on the desk, written on a card. "That's what we'll pay to walk away clean. It's a kindness. Take the kindness." Tommy looks at the number for a long moment. Then he lights a cigarette with a hand that, for these few seconds, does not shake at all, because there is one medicine that still works on him, and it is an enemy across a desk. "You've come a long way." Tommy says, "To tell a dead man he's dead. Here's the trouble with that, Mr. Brennan. I've been dead since 1918. I died in a tunnel in France with the mud coming in, and every day since has been borrowed. You can't frighten a borrowed man. You can only find out how he chooses to spend the loan." He pushes the card back across the desk. "I'm going to spend mine on you." Brennan goes away smiling, because men like Brennan smile when they have decided to stop being polite. What comes next is the price of choosing blood, and it lands where it always lands, on the people, not the principle. Through the spring, the Americans do not fight Tommy. They fight the city around him. They buy the dock leases, the freight contracts, the men in the licensing office, and the customs house who decide whether a Shelby lorry rolls or rots. Doors that opened for 30 years close quietly. And then, because patient men eventually run out of patience, they take a Shelby. It is Finn. They take Finn. Not a bullet, that would be a war. And war is bad for business. They have him arrested. A customs man they own swears a lorry of Finn's carried something it should not have. And on a gray morning, the boy is taken from the works in front of everyone, and the message is as clear as a bell. We can reach inside your house anytime we like, and there is nothing your name can do about it. This is the midpoint. This is where it nearly breaks. Because Tommy's answer to a hand laid on his family is the answer it has always been, the France answer, and he is halfway out the door with Arthur and a car full of men before Michael gets in front of him. "Don't," Michael says. They took Finn, and the second you put a body on the ground over it, You hand them everything they've been buying the whole city to get. Michael does not move from the door. They want you to do this, Tommy. Brennan wants a corpse. The day you give him one, you stop being a businessman they're trying to squeeze and you become a gangster the whole American press can hang. They'll have the Home Office on us by Christmas. Finn does 5 years instead of 5 days. You taught me to read a ledger. Read this one. The cost of the bullet is the whole family, every time. That's my brother in a cell, and he'll be home in a fortnight if you let me do it my way. He'll be home in a coffin if you do it yours. They stand a foot apart, the old king and the new mind, and for a terrible moment it could go either way. Arthur, behind them, looks from one to the other and says nothing, because Arthur has spent his whole life being the bullet, and he has just heard a younger man tell him the bullet is the trap. Tommy looks at his nephew for a long, weighing moment. This is the real test, and they both know it. For 30 years, Tommy Shelby has been the only mind in the room. To let Michael lead is to admit he is no longer the sharpest blade in his own house. It is the hardest thing a proud man can do. He looks at the car full of men, he looks at the door, and he steps back from it. 2 weeks, Tommy says. You get him out in 2 weeks, your way. And if you don't, he does not finish. He does not have to. Michael gets him out in 9 days. He does it with paper, the way he does everything. A customs clerk's gambling debts. A magistrate who once took a Shelby favor and has been pretending he didn't. A London barrister, Ada, knows who can make a sworn statement fall apart by simply reading it back slowly in a cold room. Finn walks out of the cell blinking at the daylight, and the message the Americans meant to send gets sent back the other way. You reached into our house, and the boy with the ledger reached into your courtroom and took your prisoner off you without firing a shot. It frightens Brennan more than a gun ever could. A gun he understands. This he does not. Finn comes home to a house that does not know how to thank the man who saved him, because thanking is not a thing this family has words for. He finds Michael alone in the office, ledgers spread under the lamp, and he stands in the doorway a while before he speaks. Arthur wanted to go in with guns, Finn says. For me, he told me. Said you stopped him. He swallows. You got me out with a clerk's gambling debt and a barrister reading slowly. No one fired a shot. I didn't know you could do it like that. Most of the time you can, Michael says, not looking up. Blood's the lazy answer. It feels like strength, and it's usually just a man who's run out of patience. He does look up then. You're not going back inside, Finn. Not for them, not for anybody. I didn't come home to watch this family fed to a courtroom one boy at a time. It is the night Finn stops trying to be Arthur and starts trying to be Michael. And that, too, is a thing that ripples forward further than either of them can see. And it is the night Gina finishes crossing the ocean she only thought she'd crossed once. She has watched her husband take Finn out of a cell with paper, watched him refuse the bullet and win anyway, and somewhere in it, the future she mourned on the ship has quietly turned into a different one she did not know she wanted. She comes to him late, and she does not pour tea, and she does not slide a card across anything. She puts down a single sheet of paper covered in her own hand. You can't beat those men buying loans blind, she says. I know them. I sat at their dinners for 2 years while they thought I was furniture. That's the one who's overextended in Chicago. That's the one borrowing against a bank that's already dead and doesn't know it. That's where the whole thing's held together with string. She taps the page. You wanted to know what I'm worth without a throne under me. There, that's my dowry, Michael. Everything I learned pretending to be theirs. Now it's yours. Michael looks at the page, and then at his wife, and for the first time since Boston, the thing between them is not a wound, but a weapon they hold together. Paul would have liked you a lot sooner than a year, he says, if she'd seen this. And Gina, who married a future and chose a man, finally lets herself believe she chose the better of the two. And now Michael builds the trap that ends it, and the seam he drives it into is the one Gina marked, the dead bank in Chicago. The string holding up the world. He has spent 2 years in America learning exactly how these men move their money, and he turns it against them. He finds the seams in their buying, the shell companies, the borrowed dollars, the depression-thin credit holding the whole American operation together like wet string. He does not fight them for Birmingham. He lets them keep buying it, lets them spend and overreach, lets Brennan report home that the conquest is going beautifully. And all the while, through Ada's London contacts and Tommy's old debts in the city, Michael quietly buys the one thing the Americans forgot to: their debt, the paper their whole empire is borrowed against. The London weeks are their own small war. Michael and Ada in a borrowed office near the Square Mile, working bankers the way Arthur works doors. They think because we talk like Birmingham, we can't read a balance sheet, Ada says late one night, ledgers to the ceiling. Half the city's been waiting 20 years to watch the Shelbys fail. We're about to disappoint them in a way they'll find very expensive. She looks at Michael with something she has not aimed at him in years: respect. She'd be unbearable right now, you know. Paul sat in that chair telling us we should have done it sooner. She'd be right, Michael says, not looking up. She usually was. By autumn, the trap is built. And the family springs it the way Polly would have wanted it sprung, at a table, over a drink, with the enemy smiling right up until the floor opens under him. They invite Brennan to dinner. He comes, of course, because men like Brennan cannot resist a defeated enemy's hospitality. It is the closest thing they have to a soul. The long table is set. Arthur pours. And Tommy, looking better than he has in a year, because purpose is the only medicine that ever worked on him, lets Michael do the talking. "You've had a good year, Mr. Brennan," Michael says. "You've bought half a city. The leases, the docks, the customs men. Spent a fortune doing it. Borrowed most of that fortune, too. Your people always do. It's how you move so fast." He sets a folder on the table, the way the Americans once set papers in front of him in Boston, clean and thick as a hymn book. "We bought the loans. All of them. Every dollar your operation is standing on, it owes now to a company in Birmingham. To us?" He lets that sit. "So here's where we are. You can keep the city, the docks, the leases, the lot. And tomorrow morning we call your debt, all of it, at once. And your masters in Boston find out that their English adventure has bankrupted the lot of them in front of every banker in New York. Or, Brennan says. His tailor's smile is gone. Or you go home, Michael says. You hand back the leases for what you paid. You tell your patient men that Birmingham is closed. And you remember, every morning for the rest of your life, that a boy you tried to buy owned you and let you live." He closes the folder. "My mother believed in mercy. I'm told it ran in the family. I never got long enough with her to learn it properly. So this is me, trying. Take it. It won't be offered twice." Brennan goes home. The Americans are not destroyed. Men like that are never destroyed, only inconvenienced. But they are gone from Birmingham, and they are gone knowing they were beaten by paper, in public, by a Shelby who used their own weapon to cut their hand off at the wrist. They will tell the story for years, in the quiet way they tell stories, and the name in it will be Gray. And here is the cascade running all the way out into the years and the history beyond. Because Michael Gray did not sign in Boston, the Shelby Company does not pass into American hands, and so it is still standing, whole and dangerous, when the 30s turn dark. It is still standing when Oswald Mosley comes to Birmingham, with his black shirts and his easy smile and his hunger for the kind of money that buys movements. In the life that was, a hollowed-out Tommy faced the fascists half alone, his family fractured, his nephew a traitor's memory. But here, Tommy faces them with Michael at his right hand. There is a night Mosley comes to the office to court them, the way he courts every man with money and menace, and he sits in the same chair Brennan sat in and makes the same mistake. "We are the future, mister." "Shelby," Mosley says, all teeth and certainty. "And the future is generous to the men who fund it early." And it is Michael who answers, before Tommy can, in the flat, cold voice of a man who has watched exactly this kind of future being built in America. "We've met men who were the future," Michael says. "They borrowed every penny of it. Tell me, Sir Oswald, who's holding the paper on yours?" Mosley's smile flickers, just once, because no one has ever asked him that. And between the uncle's instinct and the nephew's ledger, he understands, for the first time, that there is a house in the middle of England that cannot be bought and cannot be frightened, and knows exactly how much his movement owes. He comes back, of course. Men like Mosley always come back, because they cannot believe a door has truly closed to them. The second time he does not smile, he threatens, in the soft, aristocratic way that is the only way his kind knows how. It would be a shame, he says, for a family with so much history to find itself on the wrong side of what's coming. And it is Tommy who answers this time, the old Tommy, the tunnel and mud Tommy, leaning across the desk with the cigarette burning in fingers that have stopped shaking again. "We've been on the wrong side of everything that's ever come, Sir Oswald," he says. "The wrong side of the war, the wrong side of the law. The wrong side of every man who ever thought a poor family from Small Heath would lie down. We're still here. You'll forgive me if I don't lose sleep over your weather." Mosley leaves, and that night Ada brings the news that the largest of his backers has gone quietly cold. A banker whose paper, it turns out, a Birmingham company now holds. "That's 3 this month," Ada says, "and there is a hard satisfaction in it. We can't stop what he is, but we can make sure he's always a little short, always a little late, always wondering where the money went." Tommy looks at Michael across the room, and something passes between them that is older than words, the recognition of one strategist by another. "Your mother," Tommy says, "would have called that a good night's work." And Michael, for once, lets himself believe it. They do to Mosley quietly what Mosley means to do to England loudly. They starve him, they buy his debts and dry his wells and turn his backers cold, and they never once give him the martyr's bullet he is secretly praying for. He rises anyway, because history is bigger than one family, but he rises poorer, slower, and afraid. There is a night, in among all this, that closes the circle. Arthur opened with a pistol. The two of them end up alone in the garrison snug after a long day of beating men without touching them, and Arthur turns his glass on the table and says the thing he has been carrying since the night Michael came home. "I had it on you," he says, "right between your eyes. And you didn't blink. I've put that gun on hard men, Michael, men who'd killed more than you've ever met, and they all blinked. You didn't." He drinks. "I thought it meant you were cold. Took me a year to work out it meant you'd already decided to die for us if it came to it, and a man who's decided that hasn't got anything left to be frightened of." Michael says nothing. Arthur fills both glasses. "I'm the bullet," Arthur says. "Always have been." Tommy points. "I go off. And for 30 years that's been enough, because the only thing coming at us was other men with bullets." He looks at his nephew, and there is something in it that is almost grief and almost relief. But the world that's coming, the Americans, the Mosleys, the men with paper, a bullet's no good against that. You are. So I'll tell you what I've never told Tommy. He raises the glass. "I'm glad it's you. I'm glad there's someone after us who can fight the new thing. Because I can't, and I know it." They drink to that, the old bullet and the new mind, and it is the nearest thing to a blessing Arthur Shelby has ever given a living soul. And the family itself is the real timeline, in the end. Because Tommy, who buried a daughter in 1933 and went looking for a hole to climb into, finds instead that he has somewhere to set the weight down. He has an heir. Not a son, that grief stays a grief, but an heir all the same, a man with Polly's eyes and a colder, better mind, who can carry the thing Tommy built so that Tommy does not have to carry it alone into the dark. Slowly, across the back half of the decade, Tommy hands it over, not all at once. Tommy Shelby never did anything all at once. But piece by piece, contract by contract, he lets Michael take the weight, and the strangest thing happens to a man who has been dying on purpose for years. He starts to live a little. He takes Lizzie to the sea. He sits in the garden and does not look at the gate. There is a scene, near the end of it, that holds the whole thing. It is 1938. Tommy and Michael stand together at the window of the Birmingham office, looking down at the works, the smoke going up the way it has gone up since before either of them was born. Tommy is gray now, properly gray, and he no longer pretends the shaking in his hands is anything but what it is. "You know," Tommy says, "in another life, I think you'd have hated me. I think you'd have had every right." "I did hate you," Michael says. "For a long time." "What changed it?" Michael thinks about Boston, about the snow, and the white papers, and the pen that touched the line, and stopped. "I worked out what you were trying to do," he says. "All of it. The cruelty, the sending me away, the deciding, everything. You weren't trying to own us, Tommy. You were trying to make sure none of us ever ended up the way you did. You just did it like a man who only ever learned one language. He almost smiles. France. Tommy says nothing for a while. Then he says, Paul would have boxed both our ears, listening to this. She would, Michael says. And then she'd have drawn on a cigarette and told us we got there in the end. And here is the one reflective passage, the soul of it. Think of what a single word costs, and what it buys. A man stood at a window in Boston with a pen in his hand, and the whole rest of his life balanced on a half-inch of ink he chose not to spill. He could have had America, the crown, the wife's approval, the patient men's protection, the cold, clean power of a name on a door he never had to bleed for. All of it was his, and all he had to do was forget where he came from. Instead, he remembered. He remembered a woman with a silver streak in her hair who had loved him across a whole missing childhood and asked him for only one thing, that when the choice came, and it always comes, he choose the people who would mourn him over the people who would merely miss his usefulness. That is the whole of it. That is what a family is, in the end. Not the blood, which we don't choose, but the moment we choose the blood back. Michael Gray chose. And because he chose, a dying man got to die slowly, in a garden, with his work in safe hands and his ghosts gone quiet, which, for a Shelby, is the closest thing to heaven the world allows. That is the gift a single refusal gave them all. A daughter still mourned, but a father who learned to set the grief down beside the work and carry both. A wife who crossed an ocean for a crown and stayed for a man. A brother who learned the bullet was not the only language. A boy who came home to be killed and stayed to keep them all alive. None of it was written. All of it turned on a pen that touched a line in Boston and did not press. The snow that fell in Boston that winter has long since melted. The papers, white and unsigned, were burned in a Birmingham grate without ceremony, the way you burn a thing you never want to explain. And somewhere, in whatever room the dead keep, Polly Gray drew slowly on a cigarette and looked at her son and said nothing at all, because for once the boy had got it right without her, and the only thing left to do was let him. That's how it might have gone, the Shelby story the world never got to see. Birmingham is full of roads not taken, and we walk them here. If you'd ride with us down the next one, leave a name below and tell us whose story to rewrite. Mind how you go.